Welcome to the Decentralized Opportunity Podcast. I'm your host, Tanner Lytle, here with your other host,
Wyatt Carson. Good evening, Tanner. And we have tonight another interview. We've had several interviews lately. It's been a busy holiday season, and there's still like 2 months of holiday season left. So it's been fantastic, though. And meet with someone tonight who's pretty cool. I'm excited to talk meta with. I don't think anyone we've ever talked to has talked about meta. So this is going to be a new territory for us. But who are we talking to, Tanner?
Yeah, so today we're joined by Brian Curee from Killer Bee Marketing. Got the opportunity to meet Brian here at the Heartland Developers Conference, where he was talking about the metaverse and all the new innovations and where he's like kind of we're heading with business. And I was like, Brian, you got to join us on the podcast, and he, so graciously agreed. So welcome, man.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me. I'm glad to meet both of you. Meet you again, Tanner, and meet you for the first time, Wyatt.
Yeah, absolutely.
So just let me go ahead and clarify. I'm not with Meta. So
Right.
when we're talking about Meta, it's not Meta, but so yeah.
It's not
Fair.
Facebook.
Good
I don't get,
distinction.
yeah, I don't get there. I don't get there. They don't pay me. I don't get any nice checks from them. So though, if Zuckerberg wants to send some, you're welcome. Go ahead.
Yeah, him and I are good friends. I'll message Mark later.
All right, awesome. Thank you, Wyatt.
Yeah, they roll in jujitsu and all the stuff.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Wyatt, I can only imagine you like trying jujitsu.
It would be ugly. No one wants that.
Oh, that's great.
Well, Brian, so tell us a little bit about yourself, other than Killer Bee Marketing. Dope name, by the way. But
Oh, well, thank you.
where do you reside, Brian?
I'm actually in Central Florida in a little city called Lake Wales. It's actually right between Orlando and Tampa, basically right in the
Okay.
middle. So right there, smack in the middle of Florida.
Fantastic. And how long you been in Florida? You lived there your whole life?
Oh man, we lived here from 2013 till about almost the end of 2016. Moved back to Cincinnati, Ohio, which is where we're originally from. And then before the pandemic hit, like right towards the end of 2019, we moved back to Florida and been back since. So
Okay.
it's a lot warmer here. So even though I have a hoodie on right now, it's chilly right now in Florida. So don't ask me the temperature.
Yeah, and here in Nebraska,
Yeah.
probably like 15 degrees outside right now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we're pushing like right at like the high 60s right now. So,
Must be
but
terrible. Just terrible.
I
Damn.
mean, I got a fireplace right here, like a little electric fireplace for in the mornings.
Oh gosh. Okay, so you're from Florida. You are the CEO of Killer Bee Marketing. Why did you come to Nebraska for Tanner? I apologize. The Heartland what event?
Developers Conference.
Heartland Developers Conference. Why'd you come all the way here?
Well, actually, it came from a connection from the metaverse. Maggie Thorne, she's actually I think she's director there. She's some type of director at AIM, and she came. We have a podcast and a studio in the metaverse at a studio called Killer Bee Studios. So we just kind of just switched to marketing and slapped studios on there.
Love it.
But we had her come in for a podcast interview, and she was really amazed of what was going on and what we were doing. And she said, "Hey, we would love for you to come out and be a part of the AIM conference." And I was like, never heard of it. So it worked out great. So we made great connections, and they flew us out and loved it. We love Nebraska. It was a beautiful place, beautiful place.
Nice. Wonderful.
Yeah, it was awesome to have you, and it was such a really interesting topic. So that's why we want to jump in here. And I guess the big thing we need to start with, especially for the audience who's unfamiliar, is of course, what is the metaverse? Because that's a pretty blanket term, right?
Yeah, it really is. It's the easiest way that I've learned to explain it, Tanner, is because when we think metaverse, I mean, it freaks a lot of people out. Like, well, I still have a lot of people that we just can't wrap our minds around it until you put on a headset and experience it. It's hard. It's going to be harder and harder to wrap your mind around it. But the metaverse is, in simple terms, it's this. It's like, not anybody owns it. So, for instance, like Meta, like Facebook and stuff, they're very smart at their branding, switching their name to Meta, because now everybody thinks metaverse is Meta and Meta owns it, but it's not that. It's like the internet. Nobody really owns the internet, but everybody can be on it. So that's kind of like the metaverse. And then like these virtual worlds and stuff that people are building are more like, I like to look at it as I have a computer science background. So we do a lot of, websites and stuff. And I look at it like these are like the new websites. You can actually step into these worlds. So you can have your website or your virtual world on this new internet, the metaverse, where people can come in and actually step into your website and meet you in person.
So I have a question, and this is not meant to be insulting,
Yeah,
Brian. Are
yeah,
you are
yeah.
you kind of a tech geek?
Yeah, I mean, I guess a tech geek. Yeah, I guess so. I guess you would say that.
Well, and the reason I say that is once again we're talking about assumptions of the metaverse. I think most people who believe you're on the metaverse, you're either uh, a kid playing a game on an Oculus or something like that,
Yeah.
or really deep into tech. And I think it's because I own an Oculus. I bought it. My kids just kind of took it from me, but it's fascinating. But I think I fell into a trap that a lot of people have fallen into, is that people don't know what to do with it. Like,
Yeah.
it's so new and untouched territory that like there's some really novel things, but you're talking about using it for business and a whole podcast based in the metaverse. That's kind of, you know, next level stuff in my head because I've never considered the possibilities.
Yeah, it's. I would say like, I guess like a lot of people have started referring to me as like a trailblazer, but also like an innovator because I I look into these technologies to see first off what's going on because I don't like to give any kind of advice unless I've experienced it. So if I'm going to coach or do consulting, I want to be from a place of experience. So for like probably a lot of other people, for the first year when I heard about it, I poked fun at it, made a joke about it until I stepped into it filming for a commercial. And the commercial was also part of like some humor to it. And the headset that I put on was for the humor side of it until I realized, whoa, this is way different. And I was like, okay, I've never experienced connection like this. And I was just like the tip of like, I just played a game. That was it.
Hmm.
But then I started finding these social platforms, and like the one that we built on is called Horizon Worlds, and stepping into that. And then I started realizing the possibility of these connections that we were making. I mean, within the first, we built the studio, and within the first 2 months, I met the voice of ESPN Sports Center in the metaverse. His name's Rick
What?
Party. Yeah. His name's Rick Party. He was doing free voice coaching in there. And I was like, wait a minute, what in the world? And he ended up being one of our guests on the podcast, and we do it in a live audience. So yeah, I'm like, there's a lot going on here that I didn't really see. But the more we dive into it, the more we're starting to learn more and more of the possibilities.
How cool.
Yeah, I proudly wear that tech geek badge because
You
we're
do.
always
You
in on
do.
stuff, and it's especially with all the new stuff coming around, like with AI and all the new technologies and pieces like that. It's really easy for people to be dismissive because it's so new, and you're trying to convey how powerful this stuff is, and
Yeah.
sometimes it feels like like you're crying wolf to some degree because like no, this is going to be disruptive. And then this was like me like and Wyatt like a year ago or more, right when like ChatGPT was hitting. We're just like,
Oh, yeah.
oh my gosh, and we're telling all of our coworkers about it, and they're like, oh, I don't know about that. And then now every
Mhm.
single one of them is just publicly
Everybody's
there,
on it.
just
Everybody.
everyone's using it.
And I use it every day. Yeah.
Yeah.
So when it
Every day, don't you? It's a
Hmm.
powerful tool.
Yeah. So when it comes to like the metaverse, what are some of the preconceptions to it that, people are thinking, oh no, this is just a toy. But in reality, once you get in there, it's a completely different experience. What are those things?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think like, for one of the biggest misconceptions is like when they think metaverse, they think this is just a video game. And I didn't even think that the first time when I heard about it. I just thought it's a joke. Didn't even know that. The video game side is pretty cool, uh, but when I started getting into the size of we're actually connecting with real people and talking, it started to open my eyes because like we've got, I mean, literally, we are meeting with business people from all around the world. I think I shared with Tanner. I think you heard me share this at the AIM conference, but there's actually in a workroom that you can go to, and 16 people can be in there virtually, and up to 50 people on their cameras. So like you don't even have to have a headset on that. You can come in and they're on a big TV screen. You can see all their faces. They can see your avatar, but you're all sitting at a table talking. And when I went into this session, they do a 24-hour, 24/7 workroom. Everybody can jump in anytime. And when I jumped in, I just happened to jump in when somebody from Microsoft was in there. and they were showing their virtual version of what they're bringing to Teams, which I believe is called Immerse. Um, and they're working out and just kind of previewing it to us and getting our ideas on it. But here I am sitting in this meeting with Microsoft, with their developers, and showing us this preview of what's coming to Teams for a virtual space where when people are on Teams, if they don't want to be on camera or if they don't want to be on audio, they could put on a headset and go into a virtual space, play cornhole while the meeting's going on and play games and stuff like that. And I'm like, wow, that's it's very interesting. But to sit across from somebody from Microsoft, there was a person there from Hong Kong. There's another person from Texas, somebody else from London. And I'm sitting there going, I'm sitting with business people from all around the world that normally I wouldn't be able to sit across from. And they want to hear what I have to say. And we're building those relationships, which is opening up doors for business, which is pretty cool. Pretty cool.
So what and I don't want to jump into this topic because I
Yeah.
feel I'm coming in it with a kind of a preconceived pessimistic notion. So I guess I'm
Yeah.
the naysayer of the group. And like I said, I've had an Oculus for a long time. I enjoy several of the things. Um, what what are some of the cons to this? So I was smiling while you were talking about this because I've never pictured this in my head before, but a massive virtual meeting where you have avatars and you can be in the room together. Um, it sounds awesome. It sounds amazing. But what are some of the cons that you're experiencing right now? This can't be the most amazing thing that no one's ever heard of, or maybe it
Right.
is.
Right. No, some of the cons that I think that I have noticed is, there are people that's on there, which I think that's just like with social media and like that, there's going to be cons as well. Especially the mental health side of it. Um, in the virtual space, I've met a few people, I guess not a lot of people, but a few people that are really trying to find their new identity in this virtual space. Like they're like, I'm not good enough in life, but and here I can actually become this person. I'm like, but no, like you are. I'm like, you are who you are in real life too. So it's like trying to help them not create this almost like a split personality. Like that's something that I see like, okay, hey, we try to nurture that and say, hey, like kind of help them see like this is you all the time. It doesn't have to be a division, but they don't have like the acceptance in the world, and or people just put them down, so they come in here and it's a safe place. But then also I have seen some bad things like Microsoft, for instance. There is an application called, since you've had Oculus, did you hear of AltSpace? Have you
Oh
ever?
yeah.
Okay, AltSpace. So I don't
Hmm.
know if you know what happened to AltSpace, but AltSpace went just gone, just overnight. Nobody had any idea it was happening. It's kind of like Vine, right? You remember the video
Oh, I
platform
miss
Vine?
Vine.
I miss
Oh
Vine
my
too.
gosh.
Oh man.
Yeah, and I look at this like there's an artist that I'm really good friends with. His name's Joshua Micah, and he built his whole following on Vine, and he had millions of followers. And he said he got like a notice, like I think it was like 2 weeks before, like, hey, we're shutting everything down, and he had no plan, so he lost all those connections. And it's something that we talk about as digital consultants, like, hey, there's different types of digital properties. You have your leased, your permission based, and your owned. And you're going to use leased to build a community, but don't put all your eggs in that. You have to figure out to have a plan to get them to the digital assets that you own. Same thing with the metaverse. Like if this isn't your platform, it could be gone tomorrow. And AltSpace, they had built such a big community. People really became very close, almost like family in there. And when they ripped, like basically that's what the community has come over to Horizons. And there's coaches, there's life coaches and counselors in Horizons that are actually doing coaching and counseling in there. And one of them works with all veterans. And he told me that there are a lot of people that came from AltSpace that really just when they closed it down, it affected everybody's life, and like they were emotionally distressed. Like he said, he's had meetings with them crying because they just lost connection with all these people, and that's something that I think is a real danger too, because it can be gone like that, and you're creating more of a personal connection with these people, and to take that away is. But some people said it felt like that they had like their friends had died. So I'm like, wow, that's different. You don't really get that on social media because that connection is not there.
Yeah, you were talking about how real the experience is. Like when people go and they like in a Zoom call, you would go and you might pop in, you may put on your camera, you may not, and then you can just bounce in and bounce out and you're not really paying attention. But in the metaverse, like you kind of see where people's attention are. And you said if people as people leave, they actually like say goodbye and wave goodbye and do stuff just
Yeah.
like they would like if they came into a real room with real people. And it has that completely different feel to it. So I can definitely see where if you build those, you could build those relationships and form that's your world. So it does have that issue of you have to make sure that you have a balance of everything, just like everything in the
Yeah.
digital world, right?
Yep, you do. I mean, people will, we bring in guests all the time from around the world. We ship out headsets for them to come. We'll have to definitely talk about having you guys on. Have you guys come join us at the studio?
I would
Come
love
check
it.
it
Yeah.
out. And and people that don't have headsets, we ship them headsets. Actually, the I don't know who you guys host your podcast through, but I don't know if you know Buzzsprout.
Yep,
That's
that's
who
what we
we
use.
host
Oh,
through.
is it? Okay, Buzzsprout.
Mhm.
Okay, so we had the co-founder Tom Rossi from Buzzsprout come in, and we had him on as a guest. And when I met him at the podcast conference, he said, "What sets your podcast apart?" And it was funny because the keynote opened up and ripped apart the metaverse. I mean, just ripped it apart. And I'm like, and my son looked at me and said, "What are we gonna do, Dad?" I was like, "Oh, don't worry about it, man." I was like, "We're not here to get buy-in. It's not for everybody." I was like, "We're just, you're here." It was his first conference ever going to. So I was like, "Don't worry about it, man. We're just here to learn, and that's what you're going to do." And when we met Tom, when he asked that, I was like, "Well, okay." It was started by accident. We didn't really expect to start a podcast, but ended up turning into that. And when I told him, I was like, "We record it in a live audience in the metaverse," and he's like, "Really?" And he had a headset, but he had never heard of this and he never experienced this. I was like, "Tom, why don't you come check it out?" And he did. He came, checked it out. We did a live interview with the audience, and I'll never forget. I asked him, I was like, "Tom, when you first asked me that question, I gave you my answer. What was your first thought?" And he said, "To be honest with you, I thought this guy's crazy." And I asked him, I was like, "Well, what do you think now?" He's like, "This is the future." He's like, "I've never experienced this kind of interaction with the audience." And it just continues to grow. And the new things that are coming to it is happening fast. Just like, you don't see it as much because AI is just like everywhere. AI is, you can't look anywhere without seeing something new AI. But the metaverse is there and there's things happening. It's happening fast for us that's in there. We see what's happening. So yeah, it's very cool, but it is like we teach our guests when they come in, people will come up to you like this. And we had to tell our guests, like, if somebody comes up to you like this, they're not going to slap you. They want to give you a high five. Take your hand and go like that. And you actually can give high fives. And they're like, wow. Because it would freak people out. I noticed, strangers would come up and they're like, people are like, what's going on? Like, this is a whole new thing. They're looking at their fingers like babies, like, woo, I got fingers. That's kind of like the first experience.
Sure. So I don't intend to just grill you about the metaverse for all night. Let's talk about you.
Yeah.
How did you stumble upon this? Like, what brought you to the metaverse the first time, and why did it kind of snowball into you doing live podcast episodes? Which, by the way, I'm fascinated with. Uh,
Yeah, definitely. So we work in the broadcast industry, and I'll speak at some of those events, and there's a big event that happens in Orlando every year with, there's about like 1,500 people there. I think that comes to that conference, and it's a lot of it's all radio stations and stuff. And we were filming a commercial for that event, and our whole purpose, our purpose statement is to make digital personal, transform more lives by making digital personal. And that's, we kind of take that, our purpose statement, and apply it to everything we do. So we're like, if you can create a personal relationship with somebody on these digital platforms, you'll build trust, which is something that is very hard to come by these days, especially on digital. Like, so if you can build trust, then you build community, then you're going to lead to conversion. So that's part of our strategy and what we do. So I had a videographer come in because I was like, "Hey, I want to film this commercial for this conference, and if anybody wants to check it out, you can go to killerbeestudios.com and go to the My Story. The video is in there, so people can see it." Because the videographer did a great job. But I told him, I was like, "Look, I flew him in, and I said, the people at the conference, they're radio people. They listen to these artists every day. The artists get up and perform. And my first experience at this conference was the artists get up there and perform, and it's just amazing. But then the the people in their business, they're in business mind, they're just sitting here swiping their phone, almost like they're not even there. I was like, so I need to interrupt that, because every commercial is like, pull your heartstrings. And I was like, I need to connect with them and just be funny and just kind of approach the don't do digital alone was our whole like that was the whole focus. Don't do digital alone. You got to have a strategy. That's what we're here for, to help you. So we put together this whole commercial, and he brought the headset. I put it on, and I shot the whole thing. Like, what's the future of digital? Don't do it alone. I did everything you're not supposed to do with the headset. Go outside, drive a car with it on. I mean, all those things. Do not do it. But we did all that, and but like I said, when I put the headset on, I couldn't shake the thought of how many people are going to put on this headset to try to escape reality, their real life struggles or challenges. And no matter what, when they take that headset back off, they're still going to be facing those problems. So I took me about 2 months till I finally said, we've got to buy headsets. We got to figure out, how can this be used? Can it be used? Does it make sense for anybody that we're working with? And that's when we started doing that. We built the studio, went to uh, Dave Ramsey, Dave Ramsey's place in Franklin, Tennessee, the Ramsey's place. So we went there, and they gave me a tour of all their studios backstage, because I told them we were going to build a virtual studio, and I was trying to mimic what they were doing. And their place is amazing. If you've never been, go check it out. But we launched our first show. We built the Killer Bee Studios. We launched it to, our focus was, hey, we're going to do digital consulting in here and show people how you can use this. And on our back wall in our offices in the virtual space, it says connection. It's like designed to connect is what it said. And we're in there, and we had this studio, really cool, a glass wall in between us and the audience, and the sign flashed live. We went live, and we're testing out. Great show. Everybody loved it. We had a big interview in 2 weeks with the largest world in there. It's called the Soapstone Comedy Club. And I think the last time I checked, they're getting about 17,000 hours spent in their comedy club a month right now.
Wow.
Yeah, so that's pretty crazy. But we were getting ready to bring them in, and everybody was like, "Hey, what'd you think of the show? It was great." I was like, "It was good, but it wasn't us. It wasn't what that sign says, connection." I was like, I felt like we were in a zoo, like we were the animals, and they were here to see us, and it was all about us. So I was like, we're tearing down the studio. We rebuilt it. We spent that 3 months building that thing, and then we rebuilt it in 2 weeks before the
Mm.
show. And now we're on our fourth version, but our whole focus has turned into talking about real life stories, challenges, struggles, wins. We've brought on people like Mark Miller he just retired from Chick-fil-A. But if you're into leadership books, Mark Miller. We brought him in to talk about his new book, Culture Rules, and um, just be able to help them wherever they're at, and hope that now our focus is connect, share, transform, connect with people, share real life experiences, all in hopes to transform people's lives to help them have a better life around the world. So
How do you actually build a studio in the metaverse? Like, how do you build stuff? That's crazy to me.
one shape at a time.
Yeah.
No, it's actually changing right now a lot. At that time when we first started, you had to build everything with shapes like squares, circles, triangles, and they were just white shapes. And you would build them, stretch them, connect them, color them, add texture. You would do all that and build this whole studio. Let's see. I think if I show you, I think I might have a little clip here to kind of show you. But yeah, you do it all one shape at a time, and you do scripting to make them. And we have tablets built in there. We used to call them iPads, but I'm like, we're kind of giving away free marketing. We built that. Let's just call it a tablet. so, so we do that. But we have a producers board, all that stuff. But yeah, you do it one shape at a time. But they have a new what they call tri-mesh is coming in, where that's where you can use things like Blender, and you build all the
Mm.
3D mesh objects in there, and you can bring it in. So that's happening, which is there's taking it to the next level of realism.
Yeah, that
I
should make
mean,
it a lot more immersive for
oh,
sure.
it really is. It really is. It's very cool. There's a guy that I met that used to work for Chrysler. He was actually one that he's retired now, but he's the guy that brought 3D modeling of cars into the automobile company, where instead of shipping pieces of the cars for magazines to all these places, he said, I can create a replica of a car in 3D version that looks so real you wouldn't know it. And they said, try it. So he did. And this guy's in there, and he literally built I went to one of his test worlds. He built like a Black Hawk chopper. You go in there and actually, I'm like, dude, this thing looks like a real chopper, and it's running. You can get in there and fly it all around. I mean, that's pretty cool, pretty cool. So, um, but yeah, like right here is like here's like a little. Let's see. This is the outside of a studio. Like I was just like, that's a fire we have going out there, right there. We're just doing some pre-shows because we actually have it snowing at the studio and everything now. And but yeah, one shape at a time. It's like it's a really cool experience, especially if you're into like any kind of design and stuff like that. So
Oh man, Tanner, I want you to I want a studio right now, Tanner. I'm
You're
sold.
you're the one with the headset. I expect it by next week.
That's true. Okay, I'll work on that.
So here's like some of the people after one of our events right there. Everybody's outside. We all take pictures. That's our Christmas edition of the world right now.
Oh
So,
wow.
but yeah, it's a legit studio when you go inside because we have a whole soundboard, everything. So we'll definitely have to have you guys in and let you guys check it out.
That would be
That's so
awesome.
cool. Okay, so you kind of stumbled upon it. You fell in love with it. You built it out. How long have you been in it now? How long have you been playing around it?
We've been in it now for I guess a little bit over a year and a half now.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. So you're
Yeah.
like OGs in the metaverse, probably.
Yeah, we're actually have multiple shows that happen now, multiple events that happen every week. We are launching new shows, new events come January with some new people coming on board that's going to be doing some stuff. And we're going to be bringing in, we have a huge Christmas event coming up. We have 6 artists coming in.
Wow.
2 are from radio, and then we have 4 that are actually that are in the metaverse that have kind of been surfaced. Just to kind of give you an idea, like you asked about where can this lead? The guy Rick Party from ESPN, when we had him on, not last November, the November before, we had him on, and he shared his personal story. Believe it or not, if you guys check it out on our podcast, just go to Killer Bee Studios, just look it up on the podcast. You can pull it up, but look up Rick Party on there, and he shared he was actually a boy that had a stutter problem. That's what he dealt with that all his life, and here he is, the voice of ESPN Sports Center. I'm like, dude, we have to hear this story because you like what some people would say as a weakness. You didn't let hold you back. So he came, shared his story, and there was one person in the audience that day that heard his story. It inspired him, and then he met another lady in the metaverse that she's been trying to get into radio for years, and he heard her story and he's like, I've got to connect them. So he messaged Rick almost a year later on Instagram and said, hey, I heard your story at Killer Bee Studios. I would love for you to meet this girl. He met her. He ended up hiring her. She works for him now at the radio station. She's living her dream. So they came back last November and shared their story of how she got discovered, and it started from a connection at Killer Bee Studios. So, yeah.
That's crazy. So, and I guess I kind of feel bad because I felt like I came into this interview, like I said, the pessimistic, and I say that because I bought an Oculus, I don't know, 2 years ago ish, maybe, I don't know, a year and a half ago, probably about the time you were getting started. I bought one, and I got on it and I downloaded some apps, and there were some that I thought were just mind blowing, amazing experiences. There were some that made me nauseous, but they were all just games.
Yeah.
And so I checked in, I can't remember the name of it. Oh, so I'll tell you probably why I came into this pessimistic, and I feel so bad, Brian. I apologize. Um,
That's all right.
so Tanner knows me. I'm like a weird, deep introvert. The fact I do a podcast is weird. But I was
Most
like,
radio people are introverts. You know that, right?
see, I'm made
And
for
so,
it.
I mean, there you go.
But so I after playing some games and getting a little bored of some and not being able to play others because I don't know, I'm getting old and I get vertigo. I don't know what the problem is, but I was like, okay, I'm going to test out the social thing because if it was a game that had social aspects, I shut it off. And the reason I did
Mhm.
that is the first thing I ever did is I'd get in and it was just people being crazy and
Yeah.
saying stupid things,
Yep.
and I didn't want to deal with it. So I'd shut all the social stuff off and play my game and do whatever. I got really, really good at Beat Saber, by the way. Um,
I'm terrible at Beat Saber.
but
Terrible.
so I was like, okay, I need to step out and try something new on the headset. And I downloaded Rec Room. I'm sure you're familiar with
Okay.
Rec Room.
Yeah. Oh,
and I left within 5 minutes. It
yeah.
was the most it was craziness,
Yep.
and not only were people running around being crazy, but incredibly inappropriate, and I'm no angel myself, and even I was offended.
Yes.
Um, so I
Yeah.
guess that was my one and only social experience in the metaverse, and it was extremely negative. And I was like, done. I deleted the app because my 8-year-old daughter plays it, and I was like,
Yeah.
no, well, you're not gonna be on that. And
Yeah.
she's like, can I play Rec Room because her friends are? And I was like, absolutely not. And I think I just got really turned off immediately. So how, do you experience that? And if so, is there a way to moderate this? Because that was just such an instant turnoff for me.
Yeah, I can totally understand where you're coming from on that. Totally. I have tried out different ones. Uh, Even alt space, I was not a big fan of. There's a lot of people on another one called VR Chat.
Mhm.
What's very interesting, and I'm glad that you brought this up because different platforms will attract different people.
Mm,
One of the big things that I know, because I do meet with a guy from Meta once a month. So, and we're getting like, it's no secret now. So it's already starting to happen. People are going to be able to start coming in on our mobile devices. So they won't have to have a headset. So they'll be able to come to our
wow.
studio. Because I think, they're trying to expand how many people can come and experience it at one point. But obviously, when you have the headset, that's like the ultimate experience.
Mhm,
But we've already tested it. It should be coming out pretty soon for even more worlds. But one of the things that when I met with them, the guy that first came to our studio, he asked me, he's like, "How do your guys' audience is so respectful? Like, is this
mhm,
something that you've built into this, or is this something that it's just the audience?" I was like, "Well, there's a couple of different factors. First off, it's the purpose, what the world's built for. We do have moderators that we have that during live events. We have moderators there and we have tools built that if they don't follow, we have studio rules that hang up and they're nothing crazy. It's just, be kind, be respectful, no harassment or no bullying or harassment, and then just have fun. Um, if they aren't, they get a warning. And if they continue, then they get banned for 2 hours. Like it puts them in a place where they cannot come back in for 2 hours. And one of the things that he was really taken away by that. And one thing I would give credit for sure for Meta, and I'm not like a big like anybody listening or watching, I'm not like again, I don't work for Meta and I'm not like there's a lot of things that I do not agree with. So so just take that where you want. But it's again, it's a lease property. So it's like, okay, I see the possibilities. I'll play by the rules. Let's figure out how we can use this. But I have noticed they have been very careful of trying to protect the quality of the audience. There's worlds that I've went into in Horizon worlds that are like that, and I'm like, okay, what's the world built for? And that's what it's kind of built for. And they don't have anybody in there running it. VR chat, uh, alt space was the same thing. I've heard similar things about Rec Room. They've not been good at moderating and controlling the audience. And that's one thing that I have always specified when I meet with them. They're like, how can we succeed? I'm like, you have to, if you guys lose control of that, of how the audience is handled, and it just comes like it's like a free for all, people are going to leave and they're going to leave quick because and I think it's different on there because, right now, and I don't know if they're going to change it. I haven't heard any rumor they are, but like the avatars, you're basically trying to make them look like a real person. You're not like a creature or anything like that. And it seems like
right.
sometimes like people hide behind those avatars. But it is something that definitely like I think any parent, if their kids are on it, it's crazy, you know, just like we use these as like, we've used these as babysitters. There's parents
Mhm.
using the headsets as babysitters. We've been in a show and had 6-year-olds come up to our mic. And I'm like, why is there a 6-year-old on this headset?
Yeah.
That's and they don't even know where they're at. So there's worlds that are 18 and older, and they are pretty good about protecting. Like they do, if somebody reports something, they can look back for the last 60 seconds and see everything that's happened as well,
Mhm.
and kind of handle that. But there are things you have to be careful of. You definitely. I know there was a guy that was building a world, and this is where it can get on the scary side for people too. But I think this is across anything in life and platforms, digital. There was a person that I didn't know them, but they were very popular in the world creator stage, built a lot of worlds, and to find out he was a sex offender, he was a predator, and he ended up going to prison, I think, for 25 years. and
Mhm.
nobody had any idea. They're like, we never knew. It's like, well, it's still you don't really know the person on the other side, so you got to put those precautions into place. So
Right. And I think it's going to be really easy for people to point to that as a reason to not adopt a metaverse.
yeah,
An instant argument that comes to my head is that's the internet.
yeah.
I'm just
It
thinking of
sucks.
Reddit the whole time. Like,
Oh
it's
my
like there's
Yeah,
gosh,
it's like there's
exactly.
really good areas where you can learn, like, very
yes,
serious discussion, get lots of stuff at it, and then there's pure chaos just a click
Just
away.
just
yes,
garbage.
Yeah,
Mhm.
so it's
yep,
but it I guess because it feels more real because you're in a virtual space that feels that's playing tricks on your mind, thinking that it's an actual that you hold it to a different degree, right? Because why you go in there and you're like, I'm uncomfortable. This is chaos compared to if you're just in a chat room
yes,
and it's a bunch of 14-year-olds screaming expletives. It's a completely different
yeah,
experience. So
yeah.
that's one of the things kind of working against it is because it does feel like a real space.
Yeah, and it is like, and I know why. Like, I've walked into a place like that, and I'm like, I'm not hanging out here. I'm like, I feel uncomfortable. I'm not going to stand here. And it is like that comes down to a lot of like the world creators, and it's a different experience because if you think about it, like someone was just talking to me about this the other day. They said, these platforms, a lot of them have opted in for a different kind of, I don't know like the legal terms behind it, what it's called exactly, but where they can't be held responsible for anything on their platform.
It's like a
Kind of
Walmart
like,
parking lot.
yeah, yeah, kind of like, like if I have like okay,
Smash
if I
carts.
said something on here on Riverside right here that nobody liked, people can't sue Riverside.
Hmm.
Mhm.
They're going to go after us. They're going to go after you guys, and that's the protection for them. And that's the same way with like the metaverse. So it's like the world creators are going to have to be the ones that I would think that's going to be responsible. So those are some of the things that they're working out and making it where you can set your own rules for your world. And then it's going to be, I think ultimately we'll probably see at some point where the world creators and the world owners, they get to see that stuff and say, hey, something was reported, something happened. And I mean, we had a show that the person in the front row, it was a 18 and over show, and it was a lady that was coming to. She runs a nonprofit, and it was about sex trafficking. So she was coming to educate us because we're like, help us understand this. How can we help? So she came to talk about it, and somebody came up during a live Q&A. We brought down the mic, and he was trying to make sex trafficking sound like it was all right. And as soon as we saw that was happening, we ejected him out of the Q&A, and she
Mhm.
responded in a very respectful way. But then the guy in the front row was actually a detective, and he went immediately and started checking out
Oh.
the guy's worlds. And he came to me and he said, "Hey, I've reported him because I think he had like 16 worlds built that were built for kids." And he said he's probably actually bringing in kids and trying to make he was telling me about how they work, like kids that feel like they're not loved, and they kind of come in and groom them. And then
Wow.
he's like, we don't take that lightly, but that was right in the middle of the show. I had no idea.
Wow.
Yeah. I wonder if we're heading to a way where like certain rooms will require like digital verification of some kind. Other ones you could be like pseudonymous. I can't say that word, pseudo anonymous, and then the other one's fully anonymous. Um, because of that reason, right? Like there's the Wild
Yeah,
West where it's just a free for all and you don't know who you're talking to. There's other ways of where maybe you're okay with the animal avatars, but at least it's verified it's a real person. And then there's other times
yeah,
where you can at least look up who you're actually talking to and there's some accountability to that. Because the
yeah.
other
It's
part of this too is like, especially we were talking about AI, we're entering a future where you maybe are talking to a bot and not knowing it too. So how do you know you're actually going to a real person?
That is coming. Like, I mean, I was just talking to them, and I already know they're working on it where we're going to be able to create avatars that are AI. So, like when we
Wow.
have a studio, we're actually looking at helping a client that, they have their whole organization is built on this speaker that was over the organization. He passed away, but everybody still listens to all his content. So they want to know, can we build a avatar of him where people could ask him questions and his real voice could respond depending on using AI what they ask, and go through all their library and have him talk and respond to them, and that's a yes, and that's going to be coming pretty soon. So I mean, probably within the next
Wow.
year. So then at the studio, if we're not there in the studio, like right now, if you go to the studio and we're not having a show, It's like going to a restaurant when they're closed, right? There's nobody there because the office hours are closed. I mean, we're all working real jobs still too, right? So
Right.
we do these shows in the evening, like you guys are doing the podcast in the evening. So we have real lives, and but to be able to bring in avatars and have avatars programmed, where we can program the AIs on how to respond, give people tours. I mean, take down emails and say, "Hey, you want to be a guest? Here, well, here, give me your information," and they could send that to us. The AI could. I mean, that's like some
Wow.
interesting ways to think about even business in there. So
Mhm. Yeah, I wanted to touch on that. Like you've said multiple times, like this is the future. And I can see how it touches all sorts of different segments in our lives. So I was curious to get your perspective on different
yeah,
pieces.
yeah,
Um, so we'll kind of maybe we'll shoot on different areas and kind of get your opinion on how it might shape them moving forward. The first one I was curious on, and it's one of the themes of our podcast, actually, where you get the name, which is decentralized opportunity. And one of the things that spawned it was a conversation that I had with someone with remote work, and
yeah.
how through remote work, businesses were able to get access to talent who were locked in very rural areas that they may have never had access to
Wow.
before, or different parts of the world. And I can really start seeing that with the metaverse. But one of the limitations we've had with remote work is that you don't actually get the same level of community in many ways that you do when you're actually with people in an office or in close proximity. But if you, in this metaverse type area, if you feel that type of connection, how can that change? How is that going to reinvent things?
Yeah, I think that that's a really good point. Like in the future, it's like I'm wondering too, like how long is it going to take for everybody to adapt to it? I'm probably thinking like I'm looking like okay, probably like maybe 5 years from now, and maybe it could be sooner. I don't know, maybe it could be three, but 5 years we're probably going to be it's going to be even more acceptable. We can kind of see if you look across the board of digital, you could probably see this avatar acceptance kind of creeping in. Like more and more things are creating avatars for people to kind of close that gap to be. I call it it's avatar acceptance. Like people do not like avatars, but they're trying to close that gap in many ways in different platforms. So when it comes to working with like with workrooms. When I sat in there the first time I went, I had all those people from those different some people from the Netherlands that I sat across the tables from, and they were big business owners that I'm like, okay, I'm a small business person, and I'm sitting there thinking, this is incredible. I'm getting advice from other business people that's been doing this for years, and one of them looked at me and said, we see the future in this because this is all these entrepreneurs coming together from all around the world and openly sharing ideas and brainstorming together. And I'm like, you're so right. I've never seen this before. This is incredible. And then to take it forward, where what I love about the community, like our team, they're all remote, and we usually do the Zoom thing. And you're right, it's like it's hard to connect. It's you can easily be distracted. You're multitasking. Uh, when you put on the headset, it's a little bit different because you're there, you're immersed, you're in that. Um, but what's really cool is some of the things we've been doing is we'll go out and play mini golf together. Like I don't know if you've seen the game Wyatt and
Sure.
Walkabout Mini Golf. It's a huge, very
Yes, love
very
it.
cool game.
Mhm.
We will go and play mini golf with other people that we've connected with, business people, and we'll play a game of golf, and we'll start just building relationships. But then all of a sudden we start talking about business. And I know somebody from Workrooms that's now they said this is just what they told me. They're friends with the developer of that game, and he was telling us that they can see stats and realize that it seems like more and more business people are coming in. I'm like, that's pretty cool. So he said that some of the things they've talked about, because during these meetings, we're like, we don't have to do business meetings the same way we do business meetings like we've always done them. Let's go play golf. Let's go play golf and play virtual golf, or do some fun things together and talk. And they said that there's actually been discussions and rumors about where maybe at some point they'll make it where if you're at hole number 8 and you're like, hey, this is a really cool hole, like check out this view, and you can put a dry erase board up real quick. Boom, hey, let's talk about this, like a white erase board, and just talk and make some notes about your work project. And I'm like, that's pretty cool because we're already doing it. We just don't have the tools in there to say, hey, let me just throw this up and write some stuff on there and kind of say, give you this visual of a project we're working on and let you see my thoughts. So I could see the mentality of that work connection changing a lot like that, especially with mixed reality. I mean, mixed reality is a whole other whole other area that you can get into. Um,
Explain that to me. What does that mean?
so mixed reality is like a mix of virtual and your real life, real life area here. So like like for instance, the workrooms we use, we've seen visuals of what they're kind of hinting where they're going. And that is like right now you go in there and you're in a virtual office. And I think Tanner, did you try? I can't remember, Tanner. Did you try it where you got to go right up on the board and everything at the AIM
I didn't
conference?
get a chance,
Oh,
unfortunately.
okay. So that was like one of the cool things. Like we'd put on the headsets and people would experience with the monitors of the computer. Like they could see. I had a little 13-inch MacBook there. They put on one of these headsets right here, one of the pros, and when they put them on, their desktop all of a sudden became three huge monitors floating above this table, so they could see everybody around them in color, and they had these huge monitors, and they're working on it. Then we took them to the virtual office space where they was in a virtual space, a big. You could bring in your computers and you could see them in there and your keyboards, and you could go up and write on a actual board, a huge dry erase board, and you can literally like, you take your pen, you take your controller, and you flip it upside down like this, like if you're like writing with it. And when you press on it, people would be like, "It's not working." I'm like, "Oh no, you got to actually press on the board like you're writing on it with chalk." So they would do it, and then they would feel it because it felt like you were writing, and they would write. So some of the things in mixed reality is bringing that to a point where that whole experience is actually in your office, like my office space here. So the people at the tables would be sitting around my actual table here, but it would
Wow.
be their virtual selves. So that's where you get the mixed reality. And you might have like, the dry erase board would still be like a virtual erase, a virtual board you could write on because it doesn't really exist there, but it would look like it does. So that's where mixed reality starts coming in.
That's cool. Yeah.
I'm sold.
So when it comes, that makes sense to me. Like when it comes to, let's say you have a team for a business and you're working internally and stuff. How is the metaverse going to shape the way people do business with like customers and selling and all of those pieces? How do you think that's all going to develop?
Yeah. So one of the things that I was meeting with somebody from Google recently, and I guess right before the AIM conference, I was meeting with somebody because right now in the platforms that we're in, we can't actually go in and purchase anything yet. Now these are some of the requests that I've put in, and they're working on those things. So that's really cool to hear. Like they're listening to what we're saying. So that's cool to hear. But the guy from Google has already created something. He made it where we could go into there's a cupcake world in there where they can go to and look at cupcakes or donuts, and they have pictures, and they can just pick it up with their hand, and they pull this trigger and it adds it to their cart, and they go to the register and they type in their email address, and then all of a sudden their email comes in and it has, hey, here's all the items you had in your cart, and you just click it next time you're on your email, and it has everything in your cart, and it's already ready to be ordered and shipped. So there are people that are already moving that direction in there.
So you could
But
have digital representation of physical goods and you could go
yes,
virtual shopping and potentially like see the good. Right now I'm sure it's kind of cartoony, but they're getting things to be more and more photorealistic. So you could almost virtually try on clothes and
yeah,
see how big a laptop is or this handheld device or how
yeah.
you would look in a hat or something like that.
And that's the thing. Like some of the people, like there's some people that's even got earlier adopters on some of the stuff that we can't access yet, where they actually are already bringing in like real images of their goods. So like that donut place has photos of real images of their donuts, like you would see on a website, and you can pick it up, and then they have like cool, fun things you can do in their donut shop, like selfie areas and stuff. Like you can take selfies in there and stuff with cameras, but then they can actually see what it would look like and then process the order. So they're actually seeing something that looks just like you would look on a website. Like they're seeing the real good, not just like a cartoon. Now some people are doing cartoons because they just don't have the ability to bring in images yet. But those are all things coming. We're looking at right now working with AIM, the AIM Institute, to put together a virtual office for them, and then also we're discussing big plans for possibly looking into creating a virtual conference area like they do their conference, but have a virtual version of it.
Did they talk about maybe classrooms even? I know they do it a lot with education. That was kind of the next place I was kind of curious on is like how will this world potentially affect people learning and developing skills?
Yeah, I'm trying to remember. I don't remember what school. Well, there's a college already that has a whole virtual university built. and it is incredible. And I've not like I've actually seen it, but I've not like went to any classes in there, because I think one of the downsides that hopefully Microsoft will change. We talked about that trust thing. When we watched the preview of what they're bringing out, what they're working on bringing out, when they asked for our input, one of the things that we noticed is that there was no way for you to bring in your computer. And we're like, well, if you can't bring in your computer screen, like I don't see how business is going to use this, because like the workrooms that we do, we can bring our computer screens, we can share them up on the wall, everybody can see it. We can share our virtual machines, and everybody can see it in their virtual machine right in front of them as well. So you're already able to do that. So with them, they've already kind of lost the trust issue with AltSpace, because they shut down AltSpace. So they're already hurt there. So we're trying to encourage them, like, don't lose focus of those things. So like with the classrooms, I can definitely see like, one of the cool things on workrooms that we do is they have one, you can change the set of your whole office by like one click. So you can have a round table, and you can say, hey, I want a conference, kind of like a conference room setup, like for breakouts. And you can click it, and each section has 5 tables, and each one of the sets have one table that sits a little bit higher in that group of 5. So whoever's up on that area, more like the people there can hear them louder. But then they have a main spot up front. So if somebody goes up there, then everybody in the whole room can hear them, because like the audio is, like spatial audio. So like the further you get away, the quieter they are. And there's people already building conference halls in there, with that. And one of the things that I have suggested to Meta is, when it comes to the business side, there's a lot of these places, these worlds that are built. I can go in there and I can say, hey, I want to host my own thing at this world. I can open up a closed session, or a closed instance is what they call it. And the only people that can come are the people that I invite. I don't have to even be the world creator, and I can do that. So I've recommended, I said, hey, I think that should be turned off so the world creator can decide. Because if somebody's building a conference hall and a company wants to use it, why not allow them the opportunity to say, hey, I can rent you my hall for this amount of money, and then they can rent this whole virtual conference hall. They don't have to build it. They can just pay a small fee and rent it, just like you would do anywhere else in real life. So it makes sense, and then it helps fund the creators too and what they're doing. Not everybody has to be a creator. We
Yeah, you
can't
can
all
see
be
that with
creators.
like templates and stuff, Notion and all those, where you for a small fee you can have a something pre-built for you rather than and
Yeah,
there'll always be free ones, but
yeah,
it sounds like, if I've seen Minecraft worlds and how many hours like people and crazy stuff could build off that. And I
yeah,
was just thinking with education, you were talking about the guy who built a helicopter. How amazing would that be, like for teaching kids about helicopters where they could see one and walk around one and get into one and do
yes,
all those things. Or if you're teaching about
yes.
history, like in Egypt, and you could see the pyramids, or all those different things where you actually can be in a classroom one moment and then around you you're surrounded by whatever you're learning. I think, man, you would the even if you had ADD, you probably still would be hyper fixated on whatever's going on there. You would draw a lot more attention than like kicking the chair and twiddling your thumbs.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's you take a whole different approach when you can build the experience around what you're doing. Like we've been talking to children book authors, because I'm like, hey, let's think about who could use the cartoon version of it right now, and are like children book authors. I mean, these authors are putting out books for the kids, and you can recreate this world. And it came from a group that reached out to me that has an animated series, and we're talking to them still right now, where we're talking about, hey, we can actually create your animated series world in this application, and then all these kids that watch your animated series can come in, hang out in your world, play games. I think it's Wendy's. Yeah, Wendy's has, the last time I knew, they had 3 worlds, and people like, these worlds are amazing. Like, they're cool. They have cool games for people to play, and people are basically hanging out and playing, and they're living in that brand experience.
Hmm.
So like they have like where you might think of. Do you guys know what cornhole is? If I say
Hmm.
cornhole, okay,
Oh,
cool.
sure.
Okay, all right. Just
We're
sometimes
Nebraskans.
it's okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
Corn, come on.
Cool.
We got it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So and you guys, okay, let me ask you this. So what is like one of the things that Wendy's, like a signature thing people do? Do you guys know what comes off the top of
Dip
your head?
the fries in the frosty.
You got it right there. So you go to one of the worlds, and they have a big game, and it's these huge chocolate frosty cups, and you go up to the top, And instead of cornhole, you grab these big fries and you throw them, and they go across and they stick in the Frosty.
Oh, that's
And
cool.
people are in there hanging out and having fun. But what happens is you actually can earn coupons in there. So like
Mhm.
we actually went to a place in Texas called Humble, Texas. Which actually is, if you've never heard of it, it's actually spelled humble, but the H is silent in Texas, I found out. So when I was there, I did ask them, I was like, so is Houston Houston? But they said, no, it's not. But I mean, it didn't make any sense. But yeah, so Humble, Texas, we went there, and I was going to work at a station, and my wife and son was with me, and they're like, yeah, we're going to have to go grab something to eat for lunch. Do you have any ideas what we should do? I was like, oh, hey, grab my phone. I got some coupons from Wendy's because I was in the Wendy's virtual world and checking it out and see what they're doing. So you got 2 free meals on there. So yeah, so they went and got
Yeah.
some free meals.
So as a marketing person, uh, you bring a really good point. The opportunity for marketing is limitless. I
Yeah.
mean, and to be able to have a fast food chain interact and have people come play games, win some coupons, and spend 5 to 60 minutes just purely interacting with the brand, it doesn't get better than that.
No. Nope.
Yeah.
And you know what's cool is like it's really smart with these like I've seen there's other ones. There's like I think there's a Waffle House one there. What's really interesting is to see how smart what they're doing too, because the kids go in there. And the kids are in there flipping burgers and they're, playing house, but in a restaurant. You're like, they're playing restaurant. Like, hey, I'm going to cook you some fries. I'm going to cook you some burgers. And they're flipping it and it's sizzling and they're putting it on a tray and giving it to people. And people go and it's like, and it eats it. Well, when those kids think about, hey, where am I going to go work when they go to get their first job? They're going to be thinking of Burger King or Wendy's. Like, they're going to be thinking of these things. There's a car wash that we worked with. And I told them, I was like, they started talking to me about these virtual worlds, and they have a mascot, and everybody loves their mascot. And I was like, hey, they I started asking like, what do people say when they come to your car wash? And they said, what's really interesting is they said their kids love coming to the car wash because all the colors and the tonal, and they just love it. They said, and they said some of the parents said the only break we get is like we need a break from the kids, and we're like, you know what, let's go to the car wash because I know they're going to get 10, 15 minutes of just silence. And I told them, I was like, you guys should think about someday, if you guys ever want to get in there, creating a water gun world fight, like where people can have water gun wars for these kids, all built around your car wash with your mascot, and the kids are in their planet, and you're building this brand awareness of these kids. They already love your car wash, and you give away coupons and stuff to the parents. To be thinking about those things coming down the line. I mean, our mindsets of how we do it is going to change, I
Yeah.
think.
I was just thinking of Power Wash Simulator. You could just like clean off all the grime and get that
Yeah.
itch scratched or whatever. It's
uh,
crazy how much you can come up with just getting people to interact and have some fun and do those pieces. So it doesn't all have to be serious by any means. Like, we've been
nah,
talking about like I mean, there's entertainment in the sense of shows and then there's the novelty of games, and
yeah,
it really is a whole new spectrum of ways we can approach things.
yeah, definitely. And I think that the generation coming up are so used to it. I mean, when we got in there and started building, my son, he's 19 now, but he grew up on Roblox. I mean, he's in there
Sure.
teaching me, and I'm like, all right, this is cool. Now he's talking about Blender. I'm like, I don't have time for that. You just learn it, and you'll have job security, man. Go do that. That's great.
Heck yeah.
But I mean, these kids are already used to it. They're already building. So a lot of things that isn't it interesting. The things that I think this is how probably I wonder if this is how it is for every generation when they get older. Our parents told us like this is just a game. Like you guys got to do something more serious. And then here we are at our age, we're doing things that they thought you could never actually do as a job.
Mhm.
And when he played Roblox and did all his Minecraft stuff, he's amazing at it. I'm like, he's really good. But I just looked at it as a video game. But now I'm looking at it going, oh my gosh, like we're going into a world where that's actually happening and is lining up for things in the future. So I'm like, wow.
Yeah.
I believe anything now that people are making money off TikTok dances. So
Fair. That's fair.
everything's on board now, so we're
that's,
good.
that's right.
So Brian, I
Yeah.
can picture the commerce potential. I can, in my mind when you guys were talking about going in and picking up the cupcake, I can picture. Do you guys remember the scene from The Matrix when he goes into the Matrix and he needs a gun and there's like shells whooshing by him?
Yep.
Yeah.
I can picture Amazon creating like a Matrix, but That's fascinating. I can see the education aspect. I really can see that blowing up. Marketing, immense potential. My question, and we were talking before the show, Brian. I'm a consultant. Yeah, you as well. Uh, there are big companies out there, and I can guarantee you, if I ever went to a company, Fortune 200, and said, "Hey,
Yeah.
what if you guys went on Meta?" They would fire me instantly. What are the big blockers to big business? What is the big blockers to this blowing up and being a genuine, means for business?
I think the biggest blocker right now, and I'm hearing it more and more, is that people just trying to take the time and say, "Hey, let me go experience with it." Not like that. This is the next big thing. I mean, I think it's going to be big. Uh, again, I'm thinking like maybe 5 years. It could be
Sure.
sooner, but it could be later. But I know right now Zuckerberg's got a lot of pressure that he's got to prove some stuff this next year.
Yeah.
And I think that they've kind of had their foot on the gas like this, and they're getting ready to just smash it down. I think we're going to see a lot
Okay.
of stuff this next year. But when it comes to big companies, I think the biggest thing that can hold big companies or any companies back is our not knowing, not taking that. It's something we've always done. Like we end up being our own bottlenecks because this is the way we've
Yeah.
always done things. So I think the future in any business, even outside the metaverse, is being okay with asking those questions. Especially, I mean, asking questions in a business hasn't always been welcoming. It's like, don't challenge like the business. Like, no, that's going to be the important piece to moving forward for a business to continue is being okay with asking the why. Well, why have we always done this way? Or even, well, why should we consider this? Well, I don't, this is why. Like, I'm giving you guys some visions of what I've experienced. Is it for everybody? No, it's not going to be. I talked with a guy from Focus on the Family, great guy, and he asked me, he's like, "So Brian, do we need to get a virtual world built?" I was like, "No, you don't." I mean, I was like, "You guys have content that is there to help people." I was like, "There's already counselors in there that's running counseling sessions for married couples and stuff. All these things are happening. So if you have content, then have them put something on their wall to take them to your content when they get off the headset." There's still, I was like, "This is not to replace real life. This is just another tool that allows us to reach more people than we have." But I look at it as a tool, not as a replacement. And I don't think that they're really anticipating it to be a replacement. Some people are going to, just like I shared at the beginning. Like, people are trying to find, like, this is where I can actually recreate myself and just be like, some people, like, I want to be a talk show host, but in real life they can't be one. Okay, well, go and do that. But there, some people are like, I've got to make it, I got to succeed at this, and they're putting everything in. I'm like, be careful. Be careful about putting all that in here, because again, it's lease property. And not all of us are geared up to be talk show hosts. Do it because you love doing it and leave it at that. Like our podcast, a guy asked me, he's like, "How did you guys get so successful in here?" And I'm like, "Well, what do you mean by successful? Like, can you define success? Like, what do you, when you say that about us, what are you thinking?" He's like, "You guys have all these people that come." I'm like, "Okay, well, first off, success to me, I think you have to define what it is for you, because success for us is if there's one person in this show, we're doing a podcast and we're talking about real life stories and struggles and challenges. If there's one person here to hear that we can help, that's the success for us." I was like, "It's not having 10,000 people in here." And just like a lot of people, like you guys yourself. So when you guys do the podcast, it's not to get 100,000 downloads. We know that's a lot of work, but you do it because you're passionate about what you're talking about. And I think that that's the biggest thing for any kind of business is getting past ourselves and being okay with saying, "Hey, well, let's go experience it." You're going to read a lot of articles on, if you're in the VR space, you'll hear people talking about it because you'll read articles, but then the people in the VR space and those, like, the pictures and stuff that we've seen, they don't add up. There was a guy at a digital summit that I was a keynote at, and I was speaking about our purpose and what you're doing on digital. And we talked about all these different platforms. And at the end, I just kind of said, "Think about this in the future." Just kind of showing this is where things are going. Keep this in the back of your mind. And the guy got up on the panel. And I'm not going to say them. I'm not going to say, he's not specifically with the company. I don't want to say the company's name, but it's a big, big magazine company. But he's just an author. He's just a writer for them. He's not like on their payroll, but he writes for them. And he got up there And his first response was he just ripped apart the metaverse, ripped it apart. He was saying things. I'm like, I know this stuff isn't true because I've been in there. Like this stuff doesn't add up. So of course, during a panel and after my talk, I'm like, what am I going to say? Because I want to be respectful, but also I want people to realize I know that he hasn't experienced it. These are things he's just reading. So I stood up and I said, I've got a question. They're like, yeah, go ahead. I was like, I only have one question for you. Have you ever put on a headset? And he's like, no. I was like, that's all I have. Because it's like, don't make your judgment based off of just the stuff you're reading. Go and experience it just like you did, Wyatt. It's not for everybody, but I think you have to start asking those questions and being okay with experiencing it or having people on your team that you trust. You know our purpose, you know our mission, you know our goals. I don't have time to figure out this. Just like with my son about Blender, I'm like, dude, I don't have time to figure out that. I'm running a business. Uh, you go figure that out. We'll discuss, meet about it, and then figure out is this something we need to do. So just be willing to go that step and then make that decision.
It's well said, Brian.
Yeah. Well, Brian, thank you so much for joining us, first of
Yeah.
all. And if someone is now convinced and they want to do the metaverse, can you quickly explain what they need and then how can they get to find you on the metaverse to join one of your shows?
Yeah. So all you need is you can get an Oculus headset. So you can get the Oculus 2s now, and they're even cheaper because they brought out the 3s. If you are going to get one, you're like, hey, I think the 3s are like $100 more for. I think you can get the Oculus 3s for $500, but those are mixed reality. I would go ahead and get that. It's worth another $100, $200, whatever it might be, the difference to get that, because I know that it has color pass through, which looks a lot better than the Oculus 2 where it's black and white. So it's colored. It's got a clearer picture, a lot more lightweight. So I would go ahead and go for those. You could probably get a deal like on these Cyber Mondays and stuff. And uh, I did realize that I did find out that they don't give Cyber Monday deals on tow trucks. I had to call a tow truck on Cyber Monday. They don't really offer
Oh,
that.
man. You missed Black Friday.
Finally.
You got to break down on Friday.
But yeah, I would get one of those or get the Oculus too if that's where you go start. Get that. Go in and to connect with us. It's the app that we use is called Horizon Worlds, and you can download it for free, and then you can go to the worlds. The easiest thing is, again, I'm a marketing person, so just type in KBS for Killer Bee Studios in the worlds, and we're going to be the first person that pops up, and you're going to see our pictures, and it's going to say Killer Bee Studios. And that's the easiest way to join. If you want to learn more about us, just go to killerbeestudios.com. You can find all the shows, calendar, event times, or anything like that on there. And hear our story and email us if you want to email us that way.
Yeah, perfect. Well, we're super excited, and thank you again for sharing all this information. We got lots to think about, and I think Wyatt's going to tear, away from his daughters the headset and start playing with it more. So.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. Well, thank you guys. Thank you guys for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yep. And then with that, we will see everybody next week. All right. Bye-bye.